Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to wake up Warchant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Now, here's your host, Aslan Hadjivanti.
Good morning, folks. Welcome into Wake Up Warchant right here on ESPN 97.9 in Tallahassee. I'm Aslan Hadjivanti alongside the one, the only, Corey Clark. Corey, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. As always, folks, Wake Up Warchant brought to you by the good folks at For the Table with 3 locations, Madison Social, Township, and Central. I need to get out there one of these days, Corey. I'm slowly but surely starting to move in, and my apartment does not look war zone-ish, so it feels like small progress, man. That's the name of the game for me this week, man, and hopefully the name of the game for the recruiting class, just small progress. Get a couple guys here and there, add to the team. We'll know tomorrow on Wednesday just how good things are going to look for Florida State. I know you're not the recruiting guru. We'll have Michael Langston on join us.
How dare you? How dare you? I know everything there is to know about this recruiting class.
You're right. I'm sorry. I'm trying to marginalize you and let everybody at home know that it's me.
Right.
I'm the driving force behind this show. So, recruiting is such a weird, sort of wonky thing, and tomorrow will be National Signing Day, and everybody will get to their fax machine and be like, oh, this thing, it actually still works after all these years. Michael will be joining us again in the second segment to talk about things, and I just don't know for you, how much do you enjoy covering recruiting? I mean, I don't have to do it really that much anymore, but when you first came to the Democrat, we talked about Nigel Bradham the other day. That was the story you had to cover. But for you, how crazy is recruiting, or do you just not let it bother you anymore?
Well, no. I mean, I don't really get into it that much anymore. I mean, we do have Michael to do that, and when I was at the Democrat, we had other people that were really into it, so I didn't really have to be. Like, I look to see who they're in on and who the best players that they have coming in are, because I want to, I kind of want to be familiar with them when they get here. But I trust the people that do it for a living. That know, okay, that's a guy they really need to have. That's a big-time recruit. Okay, he's just kind of a, he's a 3-star. He's kind of a reach. Maybe he'll develop into an Xavier Rhodes, who was a 3-star, or Devonta Freeman, who was a 0-star when he was offered. But by and large, it used to be, it just feels different this year. That was kind of the thing I was thinking about earlier today is like, man, now that they have a signing day in December, a lot of the drama, it's not as crazy. There's no way it's going to be as crazy as it has been, where you have these, everybody's uncommitted. You have 40 people declaring on ESPN and people's rankings skyrocketing or plummeting depending on who they get or don't get. We kind of had a good idea who everybody's going to have, with the exception of 3 or 4 or 5 guys that are still out there, because a lot of the guys, a lot of the Rivals 100 guys, Rivals 250 guys have already signed, not just committed, because you always can have the guys that decommit and then recommit, the old Reedy Rees and the D-Rees and all those. You always had those over the years. Well, now those guys are signed, so they can't decommit. So a lot of the drama seems like it's missing this year, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just it's different. It's not, to me, it's not as exciting. It's not as Christmas morning-ish as it used to be.
I know, and I wonder what ESPN feels about that. CBS Sports Network feels about that, because they would, they'd be broadcasting kids in, Meridian, Mississippi, and just small towns in Illinois. I mean, any kid that was a 5 or 4-star that was in the mix for a big time blue blood program, they'd go ahead and put the satellite out there for them and let them go ahead and commit, on national television live. And tomorrow, I don't know if it's so much maybe Florida State's not involved with those kids, but like you said, I just feel like the kids who are that caliber, they've already kind of decided, which is so bizarre, because when I first, the thing that pulled me to Warchant, the first time I ever heard about Warchant, I was working with a guy at FedEx here in Tallahassee, and it was the whole Adrian McPherson fiasco. And he was like, I've been reading this on the internet. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? He showed me the website. And then I slowly kind of started, following it. And then that was the year that like Ernie Sims and Antonio Cromartie, we were battling to get them. I think Ernie, they were talking about might go to Georgia, and
right.
Cromartie, I think maybe Florida was kind of in the mix. Maybe Miami was in the mix as well. So it was like,
I think Florida was where people thought he was going, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, man, like I got to know what's going on with these guys. And I remember there's so many times people would break news on the message boards, and like Gene and other guys would get upset, like, stop taking this moment away from the kid. Like, let the kid do it on his own terms. And then now these kids, they're just tweeting it out. Like, they don't even want, like, this whole, a lot of them don't want the whole big production. They're just tweeting it out. Respect my decision, and just doing a screenshot of a long text message or something with a photo of the school they want. So it's kind of bizarre to see this whole thing turn around, because it used to be such a huge ego boost, and it kind of made me feel a little bit dirty. It's like, man, like we're just like really stroking these 17-year-old kids. I mean, this is really weird. But now it's kind of just like, well, they want to go ahead and just make their pick as soon as they can. And I don't know so much if it's the whole Saban effect of, cutting kids and letting them loose, and then, only having a slot open for you for X amount of time that makes these kids go ahead and jump on things. But yeah, the sort of the drama that makes it so great is no longer there. But I still think, just the whole first year aspect of Willie Taggart's going to have to draw a lot of folks' eyes to the website, and then also obviously to the Car Museum when they have the big sort of extravaganza wrap-up thing. How are those? I've never been to one of those. Is the Car Museum a good time?
Well, yeah, I've been. I mean, I would prefer it not to be, scheduled at the same time as the basketball team's playing the number 2 team in the country. That seems like maybe a miscalculation. It could have been maybe moved to another day or another time or to the Civic Center. But yes, I've been to a few of those, and they are cool. They're cool events. That's what I wrote about on Warchant. Is like, I understand why people would want to go to that, even as opposed to watching Florida State play Virginia in basketball, is because they are cool. And I presume, if they're done like they were done with Jimbo, each coach talks about his position group. So you get to hear, this will be the first time you get to hear from all the assistants. And that's a neat thing. You'll get to hear Taggart. It's the first time, it's like really the first booster event for Taggart. And he's going to have all his coaches there. They're going to be showing highlights of the kids that they've signed. I think it'll be a really neat, a neat setting and a neat scene. Again, it's competing against a basketball game. I feel like that could have been worked out a different way. But, yeah, I've been to those before, and they are neat. And it's going to be sad that Rick Trickett's not there. I know there are plenty of people that –
Man, we're on the same page.
Sad that Rick Trickett isn't on the coaching staff anymore. Whether that's fair or unfair, he certainly got his fair share of criticism in recent years. But, man, he was gold at those things. He was awesome. He was really funny, just really funny. He was like a comedian. He had good material. So I think that's too bad. That you don't get that Trickett, you don't get that from Trickett anymore. But I'm sure these guys, just judging from following all these coaches on Twitter, man, they're really funny guys, and I assume they're going to do really well in this environment too if they talk. We don't know anything about it. We know how Jimbo's used to be, where the assistants would talk. I assume Taggart's will be the same way, but we don't know for sure. But they're neat. If people, it's sold out, so it's not like you can get tickets anymore. But the people that are going that have never been this year, I think they'll really like it. It's a neat time.
Well, of course, these guys are going to be cool and fun, Corey. They're young. There's a whole youth movement on the coaching staff. Youth is where it's at, brother.
Well, they're hip. They're down to earth. They know how to use Twitter. That's always fun. I think most of them are younger than me. I don't think we could have said that about any of the ones on the previous staff. And look, again, the previous staff accomplished some great things. They did. But they were getting, Jimbo was in his 50s, which, Jimbo's still considered kind of a young coach, but he was in his 50s. And he acted, when it came to social media, he acted like an 80-year-old. Like he wanted no part of any of it. So these guys have really embraced Twitter, which I think is a good thing. It's a positive thing. It's good for the fans, too, because they get to see these guys and at least get a glimpse of their personalities. And I assume that will happen again at the Car Museum, where you get to hear them speak. But yeah, they're young, they're hip, they're fun. They're energetic. It's just, it's a brand new world. We'll see if it amounts to any more wins, but hey, it's something different.
And that's where we're at. That's where we're at, Gore. Like this is the big disconnect between me and, Joe Q Public Florida State fan, when they're like, listen, like stop talking about the guy that used to be here. We're over him, man. Like it's on the Willie. And like, dude, like totally ready for Willie Taggart to do a great job. I went to Florida State. My brother went to Florida State. It's no fun covering a team that doesn't play well. I assure you that. It's just all these things that we celebrated and valued about the guy that used to be here is now stuff that apparently was horrible, was stuff that was a detriment. And to me, I'm just like, let's just be a little bit consistent. I mean, I don't know. There's so many things that, you guys have had to talk about ad nauseum, but I haven't been able to talk about that just makes me want to just be like, hey,
get it out, man. Get it out.
I will.
We're here for you, buddy. If you want to get it out, get it out. I will say again, like we talked about yesterday, the way he left, terrible. Was what rubbed people the wrong way, the worst way.
Right.
Obviously, the offense. I think people when you go 5-6, everybody's nitpicking at everything. And so the offense was getting nitpicked at. The way he dealt with the media was getting nitpicked at because he just was combative in press conferences. Maybe this wasn't the right year to do that. Fans were kind of getting tired of that act, it seemed. So it all added up to just a lot of frustration along with the losses. And then what happened in the way he left. It's too bad. I think if he'd have left for LSU last year, you know what I mean? I think people wouldn't have maybe understood it. They thought it would have been a dumb move. It's not even a lateral move. It's a tiny step down, but it's a step down. But they'd have been like, okay, Jimbo, thanks, man. Thanks for everything you did.
No,
and it just the way this happened for the third year in a row, and the way he's talking about how they need facilities, even in the midst of being 3-6, it was hard for Florida State fans to listen to that again.
Your approval ratings right now are like through the roof, and my approval ratings are down in the dumpster. I was like, Corey,
you'll notice that about me as you work with me more and more. In my writing, and certainly on this show, I'm going to pander to the vocal majority. I'm going to pander to them as much as possible.
All right, we know your tricks. All right, we don't know the tricks of Willie Taggart and his recruiting prowess. To figure that out, we'll bring in Michael Langston right after this. Keep it here. It's Wake Up Warchant on ESPN 97.9 in Tallahassee.
Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source, knows now is a time of true excitement for Nole fans everywhere. That's why Warchant.com is especially proud to announce its newest team member, senior writer Corey Clark. Combine Corey's expertise with owner Gene Williams and managing editor Ira Schafel, and Warchant.com boasts nearly 50 years of experience covering the team you love. It's Taggart time in Tallahassee, and that means now is the perfect time to sign up for your free 30-day trial. From National Signing Day to March Madness, Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Welcome back in, folks. It is Wake Up Warchant. It is National Signing Day Eve tomorrow. The kids will be putting their names on the dotted line one last time for the 2018 signing class. We had the early signing period on December. Lots of kids still out there. Florida State in the thick of things for a lot of top recruits, and there's nobody that knows better when it comes to recruiting Florida State than Michael Langston from Warchant.com. He joins us right now here on Wake Up Warchant. Michael, how are you, man?
I'm fantastic, man. How you doing?
Great, man. Great. This is one of those low key, like, awesome days for football fans. I mean, I know the fanatics obviously live and breathe for recruiting, but even the folks that just show up on Saturdays and kind of tune in once August and September roll around, and from then on, they always can kind of appreciate how important signing day is to the overall product of their team and their program. So, I mean, with that said, there's obviously a lot of guys that have hopped on board in that early signing period. There's a lot of guys who have verbally committed after being on campus on these last few weekends. What should Florida State fans expect on Wednesday? Any surprises, or is this going to kind of be what we've heard so far the last 48 hours?
I don't think there'll be too many surprises that we haven't covered in detail. Obviously, we just came out with the final predictions today, and I think people can see on that. We won't tease that too much, but I'll kind of let people see that. But I don't think there's too many shocks. I mean, I think what to expect is I think FSU fans are going to be really happy with the guys they pull in, and the guys that we've covered in depth as far as where things stand. I think it's still there as far as what I expect going into signing day. I don't think there's going to be too many shockers as far as I'm concerned, but I think it's going to go as planned, based on what I'm hearing.
Anybody that has verbally committed to FSU thus far that there's maybe some concern, whether that's from your sources or you're just kind of your gut in terms of talking to the kids?
No, I think the commitments are all ready to sign. I think they're ready to roll. I think they're just ready to put pen to paper and have this thing done. I don't think there's anybody they had to keep work on even more. I think they've done that the last 2-3 weeks, and even this month. I think they've pretty much solidified those guys. I think they're just ready to get it signed and move on. I think mainly the focus is going to be, these guys that are, uncommitted or not committed to FSU, whether they flip some guys or just in general, finalizing these guys that have visited the last, 2 or 3 weeks. I think that's really, the focus on, what FSU fans need to focus on as far as finishing off this class.
Michael Langston, a recruiting analyst for Rivals.com and obviously Warchant.com, joining us here on Wake Up Warchant on ESPN 97.9 here in Tallahassee. So no surprises, no Anton Smiths on the horizon. But I know there's a couple guys that have committed, I think, to Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. I think those were a couple players who had been down this past weekend and had some good things to say. Could you potentially see a flip? Maybe not a huge shocker, but any flips out there potentially, from any of the kids that we've heard from in the last few days?
Well, I think wide receiver Jordan Young is a guy that I think will flip to FSU. I think he had a great visit. I think FSU has always been an intriguing school to him, and he's kind of a kid that just came out of nowhere. He was like a no-star, and then Tennessee kind of discovered him a little bit and got him on a visit, and he committed there. But I think FSU's always been in the back of his mind, and I think he visited last weekend. Everything was phenomenal from everything I hear, and I just think the offense in general, what Willie Taggart does, I think his love for just how he felt with the culture and the atmosphere at FSU, I think he's a guy that I think on signing day FSU pulls. And then the other guy is running back Anthony Grant. Now, I don't think he sticks with Tennessee. That's the good news. The bad news is I have not heard something solid that tells me that it's going to be FSU. My pick, as people probably saw, is Virginia Tech. I just think there's a bigger opportunity to play earlier there, and I think that's probably going to win out. FSU's pretty stacked at running back, and I just think in the end, I think he'll probably flip to Virginia Tech, based on kind of the vibes I've heard. But I think FSU is a team that's really, really high on his list. I think it's a close battle, but I think Virginia Tech have been there longer and recruiting them longer. I just think they went out, and I haven't heard anything solid to make me believe it's going to be FSU yet. So that might change. I mean, you mentioned signing day surprises; that would be one. But I think as of right now, on signing day eve, I would go with Virginia Tech.
Never good business to make the customers upset, but let's have some fun here real quick. Is there anything that you've been reading on the premium recruiting board on Warchant.com? Any sort of sentiment that you're seeing from fans that kind of makes you shake your head? I know some folks are worried about maybe not enough numbers at receiver if one guy falls off, or is there anything that the fans might not have a good grasp of that you're kind of seeing continually on the message boards right now?
Well, I think with all the fans, it's like you always see stuff. You're like, huh? Where'd that come from? It's like, that's what's great about our family. I mean, there's a lot of different opinions. I mean, I see stuff like, wow, how many receivers are we going to take? And then at the same time, receiver is one of their biggest needs. That kind of scratches my head. Like, okay, they're getting top players of what you want them to get, but now you're complaining because they got too many. We had a position of need, so that kind of stuff makes me shake my head a little bit. But I mean, there's always just crazy opinions and crazy just takes on certain things. But I think that's what makes it great, Aslan. I mean, I think it's just to have a different view. It'd be pretty boring if everyone just had the same opinion. But that probably, I guess, that topic kind of caught me by surprise. I'm like, wow, okay. But I'm just kind of like mellow when it comes to that stuff. It doesn't really affect me. I think more people get uptight about it than I do, but I think that really caught my attention, that one topic. But besides that, it's just, I think it's pretty normal for what it is usually, but I would say it's much more positive, and I think there's a lot of buzz and excitement on the premium recruiting board and in Warchant in general about how this staff is going to finish this class off. I think people are pretty excited, and well, they should be. I mean, we talk about a class that went from 70 to 15 now. So, and they got a potential to get inside the top 10 possibly if things go as we think it will. They got a chance to finish it off really strong. But I think there's a genuine excitement among the FSU fans that they're going to finish well.
One last question before we let you go, Michael. Everything is relevant, and everything always has to kind of match up with expectations. We talked about this huge surge Florida State has had, propelling themselves into the top 20, top 15 in team rankings on Rivals.com. The natural thought is to look ahead and kind of think, wow, if you give Willie Taggart and all these coaches a full year to start recruiting, man, watch out. What is kind of your feel and your sense about how they're going to go moving forward in terms of 2019? And is this a message that's not just going to resonate with kids off the bat this year that need playing time? Is this going to be something sustainable and something that we might, kind of be able to count on year after year, this team and this program and this staff getting top-notch players back to Tallahassee?
Well, I think it's certainly, there's several things that really, caught my attention about what they would do. I think this is certainly going to be something sustainable. And, they did all this in about a month and a half. And, you look at the teams that were on kids longer, and FSU was still able to, grab these kids and some of these kids. And, you give them a full year. I know one topic is brought up like, oh, well, they only got one South Florida kid. Yeah, well, they weren't really involved with too many South Florida kids because of this new staff. They didn't have connections to these guys. But now, most of these guys are from Florida, so they're going to be killing it in the state of Florida. I think that's the biggest thing you can watch for next year is I think you'll see a lot more kids in the state of Florida, especially South Florida. I think they'll really focus heavily on there. They have Kelly Lockett, who's one of the most popular guys in the South Florida area, coached at Miami Central. I think you'll see a lot more attraction to the 2019 class with FSU, so I think it'll have more of a Florida feel in there. But they'll also mix in, but I don't think it's going anywhere. And I think it all started just the way that really caught my attention was the recruitment of Emory Jones, a quarterback from Georgia. He was basically a lock to Florida, and Willie Taggart gave them all they wanted. A close battle. They barely lost, and Willie didn't have any connection with this kid, and he nearly pulled that off. So that kind of told me it doesn't take long for this guy to get a connection. And then you see the battles they've won. You have Dennis Briggs, who looked like he was going. Some people thought he was going to Miami, and then as soon as the staff got there, bam, they get him and go to FSU. So I think it shows you their recruiting prowess, and I think people are going to be surprised overall. One, the 2018 class. I think there's a lot of targets out there. We mentioned like defensive end Malcolm Lamar. I think FSU probably likely gets him. I think his teammate, linebacker James Miller, I think that's another one they get. And then, I tell people, it's like, do not be surprised if defensive lineman Jamarcus Chapman, who a lot of people have linked to Miami, do not be surprised if he surprises a few people and picks FSU. That would not surprise me. So I think they're going to finish strong. I think people are going to be happy, and I think this is certainly a sustainable recruiting class. I don't know if these guys can coach a lick, but I can tell you this, they can recruit Aslan. That's definitely something I have a lot of confidence in my 17 years of covering this. I know guys that can recruit, and this staff is very strong as far as the recruiting aspect of their team.
Exciting times, man. 24 hours about away from National Sign Day. Those fax machines will be purring in Tallahassee all around the Moore Center. Michael Langston, get at him, folks. Michael Warchant on Twitter. Michael, thanks for your time, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow and get a full wrap.
You got it, man.
Take care. That's Michael Langston again from Warchant.com talking about recruiting. We're going to take a break. When we come right back, we're going to talk about football. That's what we like to do around here. It's Wake Up Warchant, ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Welcome back on into Wake Up Warchant. He's Corey Clark. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. Thanks so much for being here on this Tuesday morning. A reminder, Taco Thursdays over at Township. $2 house tacos, $2 off the taco of the month, which I don't know what it is yet, Corey. I'll have to find out. And $2 off their shrimp ceviche tacos. Wake Up Warchant brought to you by the good folks at For the Table. 3 locations in the Collegetown area. Collegetown, man, what a cool little thing. But I'm so sort of puzzled by it, Corey, because Where's all this? Like, are these kids just all? Is everyone on scholarship these days and just has a whole bunch of like disposable income? Because like I couldn't afford like an $8 Bloody Mary when I was 21 years old. But these kids around these days, man, they're out there making it rain.
Did you drink Bloody Marys when you were in college?
I didn't. But like when I was here for the Clemson game 2 years ago, me and my buddies were all at Madison Social, and then all these little whippersnappers start coming to the bar, like barging their way in. They're like, "Let me get 3 Bloody Marys," and I'm like, dude, that's like. That was a day's worth of like work for me.
Right,
like
yeah.
more than that.
No, when I was in college, it was Natural Light. It was getting pictures of Natural Light. That's what we would do, or try to find a keg party where we knew someone. But yeah, like the college town's been. I don't know if that's ever been talked about on Wake Up Warchant, but I think the college town has been a great addition to the campus, to the Florida State scene. I don't really feel comfortable going down there because I feel like a creepy old man, and I'm too old for that scene. I try to stay more maybe in Midtown, or I guess at my house, but where I don't feel like a creepy old man. But yeah, man, when I have been there, it's always been it's bustling. It's what Florida State needed, because there are other schools like Georgia and Florida, even Florida, where it just seems like there's more. There's stuff closer to campus. And I just think it's just been a really neat addition to have these kind of places that close to campus, to Doak, to Hauser, to the intramural fields. Obviously, it's just been a really nice addition. There's a free plug for College Town.
Yeah, there you go, man. You're getting paychecks from everybody, man. Next will be the Champions Club. It's never stand firm in that one. I'm kidding. The Champions Club is also a very important thing. Yeah, I mean, this is the one and only time I'll say something remotely positive about the University of Florida, and that is the Swamp, not the actual stadium, not Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, but that actual bar, the Swamp. I remember being a little bit envious of it when I was in college. I'm like, this is kind of cool, like a 2-story bar, like right across the street from the stadium. I remember trying to convince my friends. There used to be a Citgo station, I think, on Pensacola and Woodward, maybe. That was right next. It was like adjacent to the old Osceola building. And I'm like, guys, we need to all like go in and buy. It was like an abandoned Citgo. I'm like, dude, we need to like buy this little plot and just put up like a 2-story, like bar. I'm like, it'll be epic. Like you can see the stadium and everything. I was too ahead of my time. I was like Randall Cunningham, Corey. I was just too ahead of my time.
Yeah, it can't be standalone, because nobody's ever by the stadium except for 7 days a year. So it can't be standalone. That's what the beauty of College Town is. It's got a bunch of different places where there's more than just one thing to go see or do. So, and I'll say that about Florida too. Yeah, the stadium is right across from a bunch of restaurants and a bunch of bars. It's essentially right across from downtown Gainesville, which again isn't the prettiest place in the world.
Ew.
But there are some nice things to go do in downtown Gainesville or downtown Athens. And so Florida State at least has a little taste of that with College Town.
Dude, can we go to Athens sometime? I've never been to Athens. I've heard nothing but good things about Athens. Like, I feel like I need to go to Athens.
Yes, you should go to Athens. It's I know I'm biased because I went there, but I think it's my favorite college town. It's to me it's perfect for what a college setting should be. It's a small town with a lot. It's a small town, but with a lot of people, if that makes sense, because there's 30,000 students there. And the downtown is right across from campus. It's kind of bustling. There's a lot of neat restaurants and record stores, and everything you associate with Athens is in there. So yeah, man, we'll go to Athens. Sure. If REM ever gets back together and has a show in Athens.
At the 40 Watt Club? At the 40 Watt Club, right?
At the 40 Watt, man. I've been there more than once in my life, and that is a cool place to be.
Fantastic. All right. You guys heard him. We're going to go at some point. Back to talking about Florida State, though, because I know everybody home right now is like, all right, enough about that. Let's talk about Florida State. Obviously, the Noles getting ready for National Sign Day. That's going to be Wednesday. Michael Langston, joined us in the previous segment to talk about things, guys potentially flipping and all that fun stuff. This will be our first sort of real gauge of Willie Taggart's recruiting prowess. And it's not really fair to judge him based on this class because of what he had to work with in terms of the time and even his staff. But Michael made a mention in the previous segment there, Corey, that everything is relative, right? And everything has to kind of match up to expectations. And how kind of fair or unfair is it to expect Taggart and these coaches to start bringing in top 10 classes on the regular? Michael seems to think that's going to be something that's totally sustainable and will be, the rule, not the exception. I mean, how crazy is it to think that a guy could, walk into the big shoes that Jimbo Fisher left behind and, whatever he left really bad, but to kind of fill those shoes so quickly, but then also develop this whole kind of culture that's going to be able to sustain in the years to come?
Well, I'll say this. If Taggart isn't recruiting consistent top 10 classes, he's not going to be here long. I mean, there's no excuse at a place like Florida State because of what Bobby Bowden built, obviously, but then what Jimbo rebuilt and the job he did to make Florida State a nationally relevant program again. For Florida State not to be in the top 5 or top 10 every year in recruiting would be an awful sign. And Taggart's strength is supposed to be recruiting. He's got other strengths, obviously, but he's supposed to be an all-world recruiter. So, and if you're at a place like Florida State, that's like giving a great car salesman a bunch of Cadillacs to sell, or what? I don't know. Are Cadillacs still a big deal now? Are they considered nice cars? I don't really know cars. You know what I mean? A Porsche. Are they even nice? See, Aslan, I don't know. Sometimes I use analogies, but I'm not sure if they work or not.
Something sensible like a Toyota Camry. That's going to sustain somebody and it's going to get them from point A to point B. But
right. But do Camrys sell themselves? I don't know. I would assume Porsches sell themselves.
Right.
Florida State kind of sells itself. When you have somebody like Willie Taggart at the helm, who's already a great salesman, working with those kind of tools, man, they need to be top 3, top 5 every year because there's no excuse, especially with that staff, his offense, the way they run it, as exciting and fast-paced as they are, man, they got it. He needs to be Michael's right. I think that's the rule, not the exception. This year, if they end up outside the top 10, which I guess they might, but because they had 6 weeks to really recruit, this will be the exception. Otherwise, I think they're going to be putting together monster classes every year because I just think he has a way to relate to players, and he is selling a great product.
See, that's the thing, man, and I've listened to several headlines for so long. I know you were so close to your late father. I know he was like your best friend. Like me and my parents, like I love my parents, man, but my parents are not my best friend. Okay, like they're just not. Like I love them, they love me. They'll support me in anything I want. I will race home and help my parents in anything I can do. But it's not that sort of like vibe. And for me, so much of it's not something. I'm not anti-Willie at all, man. I mean, what Jimbo did to this program, I appreciate. The way he left though was horrible to leave us in such a terrible position. And I know I shouldn't say we, I should say Florida State, but to leave in that sort of fashion was terrible. But I just don't know if any breakup is ever going to be good. No coach ever leaves and everyone's like, either you get kicked out, man, or you leave on your own terms and you piss everybody off on your way out the door. There's no real sort of amicable parting of the ways. But my thing is it's just so crazy to see everybody just kind of, we're talking about all this like great recruiting. I need to see something first. Like, I guess that makes me kind of cling to the hope that I got to watch some tape, I guess, really. Not to be a nerd, but like I have to watch tape of Willie because I know he's going to be able to recruit. But my whole thing is I just felt like Jimbo's game plans were always pretty sound, which sounds crazy because they were 5 and 6 last year. But I just had some sort of, a belief. I saw proof from him that things will always work out fine.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jimbo Fisher is an established coach. I mean, there's a reason he got a $75 million contract. Now, we'll see how that works out for Texas A&M. Winning at Florida State is a heck of a lot easier than winning at Texas A&M, which hasn't won a national championship since The Wizard of Oz was in theaters. So, and that's legitimate in 1939. So it's going to be really hard there. But, man, yeah, Jimbo Fisher's a really good coach. And number one, he lost 12 games in the last 3 years, so it wasn't like it was trending in the right direction. But again, it's not just that it was an ugly divorce. I mean, there are going to be, like Willie Taggart left Oregon after a year. That's an ugly divorce. But Willie Taggart, and they got mad at him. He was ripped by the local media. The fans don't like him. They thought he was a traitor because of all the things he said at his introductory press conference in Oregon.
It was like
that he loved this place, and then he leaves a year later. But they're different, and I think that Oregon. And Willie Taggart handled it better because he apologized and said, I know they're mad at me. They deserve to be mad at me. I loved my time at Oregon. Jimbo Fisher never really said that. He always kind of made Florida State fans feel less than because they didn't have this or they didn't have this or A&M has this, but we do this. Like he was all – I think Florida State fans felt less than and not maybe appreciated. The program maybe wasn't appreciated for what it was before he got here because it had already won 2 national titles before he walked through the door. So it had a cachet with players. It had cachet with recruits. It had cachet across the country that didn't have anything to do with Jimbo Fisher. And it just seemed like at the end, Jimbo Fisher only thought about what Florida State didn't have and not, location, proximity to great recruits, weather, Bobby Bowden, all the history and tradition, Deion Sanders, Mickey Andrews, none of that seemed to matter to Jimbo nearly as much as a football-only facility.
No, that's fair, man. I mean, that's for sure fair. And I don't.
But I mean, you're talking to someone that I was a big fan of Jimbo Fisher. Again, it kind of got ugly at the end. I was having to write a lot of negative things, and we didn't necessarily get along that much. But we had a lot of I had a lot of nice moments with him, a lot of really nice off the record moments with him, and appreciated him for what he did. In fact, I thanked him. I think it was Pro Day of 2014 after the national championship. I made my way over there because I hadn't seen him since. It's been like 3 months because, of course, we were on lockdown. We couldn't talk to anyone. Right. But I went over there and thanked him for getting me out to Pasadena to cover a national championship game. I don't know that many sports writers do that, and maybe that wasn't ethical of me, but I genuinely thanked him, man, because it was a really neat experience for me to be out there covering that game, covering that team, and that was because of him. So I thanked him, and he was very appreciative of that. So, I mean, I certainly understand and appreciate what Jimbo did for Florida State. And I will say this, you made mention of it, and then you kind of pulled it back. But you're right, man. They're big shoes to fill. They weren't great shoes at the end.
Nope.
But those were big shoes. They're big shoes to fill for Willie Taggart. The last two head coaches at Florida State have both won national titles. So it's kind of almost like national championship or bust at a place like Florida State, man. Just going 9 or 10 wins a season. Yeah. Even that's not good enough. That's what he's getting into.
Yep. Just two things we're up against the break I just wanted to touch on real quick. I think it's totally different. I know Oregon has animosity towards Willie, but I think it's completely different just because it was about a week. It was a week of dancing around things, right? But with Jimbo, it had been years, right? It had been years of LSU and A&M. And also the thing, my whole metaphor that went by the wayside, the whole thing was me talking about my parents, which is really weird. Sorry, everybody at home. But the whole thing was basically, it's crazy because I felt like Jimbo's whole thing was like, I'm this CEO, I'm this, I don't want to say like a godlike figure, but I'm just this really smart dude that's going to get you to the promised land. Come play for me, it'll be all good. And then now it's like the whole, hey, I'm just going to be your friend. Like, the whole head coach, I'm going to be your best friend kind of thing, which I don't, it's working. I don't know how it's good in February. I think it's really good in February, obviously. The proof's in the pudding right now with all the guys that are lining up to come to Florida State. I just don't know when you're down by 6 against Miami, down in Miami Gardens, how that's going to translate to when you got to get on somebody's rear end and start making some blocks and start making some throws. And not say that he can't do both, but we're seeing one of the sides of it. I need to see the other of it.
Just think of real quick, Dabo. Dabo gets it done at Clemson, and he's certainly not ripping into people either. There are different ways to win. Now, if Taggart has a Dabo-like career, Florida State's set for the long haul because as much as we made fun of him, man, Dabo's getting it done. He's got himself a great program. And Taggart, you think, could maybe be kind of like that, a player's coach that can really recruit and surround himself with good assistants.
I have a metaphor that I want to use. We'll do it after the break, as well as we got to touch upon something. In terms of scheduling, maybe we need to all chip in and buy a day planner for somebody of importance at Florida State. We'll talk about both of those things coming up right back here on Wake Up Warchant here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
These recruiting updates are nothing but fluff.
Are you wasting your time again on free blogs and social media to get the scoop on FSU recruiting?
Yeah, it's all bait and switch. Get me excited with a headline, but get nothing in return. You're on Warchant.com. What's really going on with FSU recruiting?
Could be another top 5 class, but for the real scoop, you'll need to get your own Warchant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer. Just sign up and you'll get full access through signing day. And nobody has more accurate and timely information on recruiting than Warchant.com.
You know I like free. Sign me up. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Welcome back, folks. Final segment of this Tuesday of Wake Up Warchant here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. He's Corey Clark. He's got the easy name. I got the difficult name. I'm the guy that's being difficult, talking about Jimbo being a good guy, and everybody's upset. It's fine.
Well, nobody said he was a good guy. Right. He was a heck of a football coach.
Yeah, right on. Just a reminder, folks, as always, Wake Up Warchant brought to you by the good folks at For the Table. They've got 3 locations in College Town, Madison Social, Township, and Central. Let me know at Aslan Hodges. A really long story. But my Twitter is Aslan, and my last name, which on TV used to be Hodges, because my first TV job, Corey, was in Montana, and the name Hudjavandy was a little bit intimidating. You know, I just don't think they wanted like Cowboys to be like, who's this Arab boy on my television screen?
How'd you choose Hodges?
Because my name's Hudjavandy, and everybody called my dad Haji. Like everybody calls my dad.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, everybody calls my dad Haji. People in high school, when they found out, would call me Hodge. And then some girl actually used to call me Hodges, like plural of Hodge. It was really weird. So
okay.
The guy that helped me get the job in Montana, he was so distraught. He's like, dude, you got the job, but they want you to change your name. This is ridiculous. So me and my friends just went on a bender one night and started thinking of like crazy Montana names. I was going to like call myself Colt Rivera. You know, I was going to be this like, ethnic looking cowboy or something. Yeah. But they let me keep my first name. They made me change my last name. But then when I came here, I regained the family name, trying to.
Well, there you go. Good, man. I'm glad Gene will let you do that.
I know. What a good dude. It's so weird, though. It feels really, and it's a bad thing. Like, it feels weird to say my last name. I'm like, Aslan Hudjavandy. I'm like, gosh, that is a mouthful.
Yeah, you're not used to saying that, right? Yeah.
Got to bring it back. All right. So you touched on something really good in the last segment. Everybody's trying to out Nick Saban, and nobody really has. Jimbo, save for one season, could not out Nick Saban, and we've seen what Dabo's done with this whole, we're going to have fun sort of vibe and whatnot. And, he talked about it at the Sugar Bowl, which I was covering at my previous job in Alabama. He's just like, listen, I don't think walking around hating life, being mad at everybody necessarily equates to winning football games, which, I'm sure Jimbo Fisher, should have listened to last year and made everybody's life a little bit easier. But you kind of mentioned that, listen, you don't have to be this drill sergeant or jerk to get, good results. You can be a guy like Dabo. And kind of pivoting back to what we know right now about Willie Taggart, and that is being a great recruiter. If you want to be really negative and you want to be really cynical, you could be like, well, so was Butch Jones. But I feel like with Willie Taggart's pedigree, having coached under Harbaugh, having flipped programs like Western Kentucky, having flipped South Florida, having pretty much flipped Oregon in one season, I feel like he's much closer to Dabo in terms of potential than he is the floor, which would be a guy like Butch Jones. Agree, disagree, off?
No, I definitely agree. And I think the difference, there is that, to turn around Western Kentucky and South Florida, that's not easy. And I know Taggart has a 47-50 record, but man, after 3 seasons at both those places, he was winning. He was making history at both those places. It's a lot easier to turn down I guess my point is, if you can turn around a Western Kentucky and turn South Florida from 1-10 to 10-2 in 3 or 4 years, man, it just seems like you've proven yourself. You've proven your mettle, and now you get to go to Florida State, where man, you can turn it around really quickly. In fact, I don't even know how much you need. We call it a turnaround. How much is the turnaround really? When if Francois stays healthy, they might have won 9 games last year.
Right.
So I think you're turning around your quote unquote a 9-win program. So you think you're really close. If things fall the right way, he can have Florida State back in the playoff conversation. This year's going to be tough because of the schedule and the new offense and new defense. But yeah, man, I think you could look at somebody that a year or two from now is playing for championships.
Yeah, listen, I don't think it's fair at all to judge him on his record, which sounds bizarre because at the end of the day, that's who you are. But obviously, man, there's extenuating circumstances that you have to factor in when it comes to his record. And to simply gauge him on that, I think is totally unfair. And I don't think is nearly accurate in terms of how good of a coach he can be. But yeah, you mentioned just being able to flip all these programs, and then you come here and things are kind of in place for you, and you just have to, tweak a thing here or tweak a thing there. And just it does. I am excited about Willie Taggart. I truly am. It's just for me, there was that whole like. I don't know like what the proper word is, but it was that Jimbo's whole sort of philosophy, the sort of I'm going to win, I'm going to fight with honor. Like I'm not going to do this hurry up stuff. I'm not going to hold up cards with SpongeBob and Carmen Electra and a Lamborghini on it. And like I love that. Like I was like, yes, we don't need to do all this crazy stuff. But when you see Nick Saban adapting to things, you see every other program around the nation adapting to those things. It's a sensible thing to be like, you know what? It's not if you can't beat them, join them thing. It's just, listen, the game has changed. The game has evolved. you have to do things differently. And that's it for me. I'm very resistant to change. It wasn't so much like I have this like man crush on Jimbo. I really did respect his like football acumen, but it's just me going to have to sort of warm up to this whole idea that we're going to be doing things a lot different than we used to. And that's kind of the fear, right? It's the unknown. Like, will this all sort of work out? So that will be.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I was the same way about Jimbo. Like, I respected the fact that he didn't play. I called it, we called it Mickey Mouse. Just go, try to run a play every 9 seconds, and your defense can't stop anyone because it's exhausted. And each game is 41-40. And his whole argument against that back in the day, which was true, was those teams didn't win championships. Well, that's not the case anymore.
Yep.
Clemson won one, Alabama won one. We're running a hurry-up offense. That's what these teams do now. So it's been proven you can win that way. And, yeah, when Nick Saban even went to a hurry-up, faster tempo, man, at your Florida State, it just makes sense when you strip it down to run more plays, to have your athletes on the field longer, because it's like North Carolina basketball. Have as many possessions as you possibly can because your players are better than their players. And over the course of 80 possessions, that will probably show itself. Same thing with football. Over the course of 80, 82 plays, your athletes should at some point make 2 or 3 or 5 or 8 more plays than the other team. And Florida State was shortening these games against lesser teams. And again, that's why you beat Duke by a touchdown and Wake by a touchdown. And, lose some games that you shouldn't lose is because you keep lesser teams in it longer when you shorten the game and have 9-minute drives. The days of 9-minute drives, thankfully, are over. I don't want to see them anymore. I saw them enough. They were fine. They were great. They scored. They were effective, I guess. But I don't want to see the time-sucking, soul-swallowing 11-play, 7.5-minute drives anymore. That's just not football anymore. We've evolved into something different than that, and I think Taggart can really make that play at Florida State.
Man, we'll have to go. We'll have to cross that bridge at another time. We're running against another final break here, wrapping up the show. Give you about here a minute. I don't want to limit your greatness, Corey, but just to kind of set the table and tease the folks at home. But you talked about it didn't make sense to do the slow plotting thing at Florida State when you had all these great athletes. Doesn't seem to really make sense to have. I don't know how much of it's the blame. I mean, I don't know how much you can do on scheduling, but the fact that tomorrow the number 2 team in the nation is going to be coming to Tallahassee to play Florida State in a game that's crucial, obviously.
Huge game.
But, this is a school, this is a program, this is a city that loves football, and it's going to be unfortunate to perhaps see a Donald Tucker Center that's not going to be filled up.
Well, I think there's a chance that it will be filled. You're only talking about maybe 700 seats for the recruiting party with Willie Taggart's first National Signing Day party. I don't like that there had to be a choice made because a lot of those people are crossover fans, people that the kind of people that would go to Willie Taggart's recruiting party to see the head coach speak for the first time at a booster event and all his coaches speak are probably the same type of people that will want to go see the number 2 team in the country play the home team in a huge basketball game, but they were forced to choose. And you're right. I don't know what could have been done. I mean, I think my point in the column I wrote is they're going to be signees on Thursday too. The kids that were signed on Wednesday will still be signed on Thursday. You could talk about them then on a Thursday night. You could talk about them on a Saturday night. You could move it to 5:30 at the Civic Center in that huge, expansive banquet space and have the banquet there. And then when that thing's over, everybody can go to their seats and watch the basketball game. I felt like it just wasn't – the FSU basketball game wasn't given any priority at all or any thought at all to maybe we don't want these 2 competing entities in making our fans choose. That's all. I mean, it's not a huge deal. It just kind of shows you, along with Bounce TV, it kind of shows you where Florida State basketball still has some room to grow when it comes to this community and this fan base, maybe even this administration, but it's certainly this community and this fan base where you're competing against high school recruiting parties and your games are on something called Bounce TV.
Fair enough. Don't tease it for everybody. You can follow his work. It's over on Warchant.com. Follow him on Twitter, Corey_Clark. I'm Aslan Hodge on the Twitter machine. This is an edition of Wake Up Warchant. It is now done. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll talk to you tomorrow.